Good evening. I am Cynthia Elliott, President of the Rochester Board of Education. Today is May 9th, 2023, and we're here as a special meeting to adopt the 23-24 school budget. But prior to that, we have a speaker that I'm going to call up, Eamon Scanlon. Mr. Scanlon, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners and Superintendent. My name is Eamon Scanlon. I am the Education Policy Director at the Children's Agenda, a nonprofit organization based in Rochester, New York that advocates for evidence-based policy solutions to the most serious challenges and needs of children. First, I just want to commend this administration's focus on mental health and would like to see the rollout of telehealth and the expansion of satellite mental health clinics as soon as possible. In the Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2022, 11% of girls at RCSD reported having attempted suicide in the past year. 19% of all students reported feeling depressed, anxious, afraid, empty, or confused because of the death of a close family member or friend. A scientific poll of Rochester parents commissioned by the Children's Agenda this March showed over 80% faced barriers in accessing mental health services for their children. Increasing the availability of mental health supports in schools will break down these barriers, and so we recommend that RCSD include the necessary funding in this budget to expand the number of schools with mental health satellite clinics and add telehealth throughout the district. In the long term, these efforts will be mostly sustained by billing providers through Medicaid and other insurance. Now is the time to enact these changes when the district is flush with revenue. When it comes to school climate, we also would like to commend the district's effort to expand restorative practices and the board's support for the Solutions Not Suspensions bill. We are asking that 15 restorative coaching positions be funded next year. Given the deep needs in the community and the difficulty that the district has had in filling these positions, to spend the stimulus money, it would be appropriate to use some of those funds for stipends to parents and students to be trained on mental health first aid and restorative practices. This is an economic benefit to the community and adds capacity for solving conflict and mental health struggles beyond the classroom. Moving on the budget book, moving to the budget book, we still have serious concerns about the format. We understand that was simply a carryover from last year, but it is unacceptably lacking in detail, and we ask that a longer narrative document be created for next year to explain how the policy priorities of the district are reflected by district spending. Also, and we asked for this last year, a position summary by job code should be available to the public. This is also known as an object summary. Transparency will be crucial going into the 24-25 budget season when some tough decisions will have to be made. But for now, we commend many of the positive steps the district is taking to address long-standing student needs and hope you will double your efforts with the rollout of mental health supports for students and investments in restorative practices. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon. So the next item is Resolution 630. We're going to vote on that. Is there a motion for that?
So moved. Second.
Well, we've had conversation about it. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And so we're down to the consideration for the proposed budget. Let me just get back on that page. I'm going to turn it over to you for the final review and final statements, Commissioner. Yep. Okay. Vice President.
Thank you. And I just want to note to the listening audience today that it did It was a little bit different. We had a student suspension appeal that we had to do, so this was a combination of a special meeting, which is why President Elliott opened and why we allowed a speaker. We typically, on the budget vote, do not allow a speaker, but in an effort to be more efficient and also move through our board duties, we took on one final student suspension appeal and decided to combine it. Just in case anyone's watching and trying to figure out why we had a speaker tonight. And thank you for those words to our speaker. Certainly the budget book was very challenging last year and did not lack the same challenges this year. And just a reminder to everyone listening that we are still collecting feedback on the redesign of the budget book through the participatory budgeting tool online, with the goal of getting input from as many community members, staff, students, and families as possible so that we can prototype some books and then get feedback on those prototypes before we move forward with a final product of a new, more transparent book that's more easy to follow along. I do want to thank a number of people, including our Chief Financial Officer, Sean Farr, and Terry, our budget director, and the entire finance team. Hopefully it was a little bit less stressful than last year, but certainly want to acknowledge you all and to our chiefs and our principals and our executive directors, all who are critical in how each department budget will look like and meeting deadlines and timelines so that there is a better flow. And I just want to acknowledge that that flow from department by school and communications up the ladder were much more efficient and effective this year. And I just would be amiss to not thank everybody involved in the entire budget process from all levels at the district. And then also to my board colleagues who all asked very intimate and great questions about the details that are in this budget book. And I just, for the record, want to state, it is in our memo as well, that this year did feel much easier to go through because of ARP and CIRSA and us not facing that financial cliff yet, if you will. But that next year's budget development process will start much sooner, will be more intense, and will require some more difficult decisions from each and every one of my colleagues on here. So I do want to just thank you all for your participation this year. And with that, I am going to go around and ask for anyone who wants to make statements. I know President Elliott, I'll start with you because you have some on-record things that you want to add. And then after you, I'll move to my commissioners on the right, and then I'll loop back at the end of the left and loop it back this way, and we will roll call the budget vote. So with that, President Elliott.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. So I had received a letter from Commissioner Rosa, State Education Department Commissioner, and I just wanted to make sure that we have on the record that those things that were recommended to the commissioner from our state monitor, that those things were addressed and that they are in our budget. The state monitor is also approving the budget, but wanted to make sure that those things that the state monitor had recommended for this budget and had recommended to the State Education Department via Dr. Rosa, Commissioner Rosa, that those things were addressed. And I did send copies of all of these communications to my colleagues. And so I'll just, if I may, Vice President, just open it up with regard to the letters from the commissioner. If there are any questions to the superintendent or to the state monitor with regard to these letters that were sent. And let me just end by saying that the State Education Commissioner has approved us moving forward with our budget. Any questions? Commissioner Adams, did you have a question?
Yeah. I just want to say, I support this budget, but I'm not gonna be able to stay here. I have to go.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Got some medical issues.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you. Any other questions or comments relating to this? All right,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. You need to get your card up?
I'm sorry, I'm going to request that we take a 5-minute recess. So can I get a motion to recess for
moved.
5 minutes? And thank you, recess for 5 minutes. Sorry, audience, we'll be back.
Thank you. We apologize for that interruption, but we had one of our colleagues who had a medical emergency, and that comes first. And so we wanted to address that, but we will continue with the conversation that we were having. And so what I'd like to be able to do is to have, if Dr. Jallo and, or Dr. Paluso would like to. Oh. All right, Commissioner Patterson.
Excuse me. I think my question was relative to Dr. Rosa. You said that there were some things that she wanted to see in the budget. Do we know what those things are, and do we have an end date when they're going to be completed?
I'll let Dr. Paluso respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So there was a couple of transmissions back and forth regarding an updated budget after our draft budget, some information around a academic plan recommendation that was modified, and then information about some programs to Dr. Jallo. But ultimately, in the final letter from Commissioner Rosa, she is asking that we take a look at our budget book and make sure that on 24-25 that we have a new budget book, that we also take a look at our district footprint and know what we could operate within and where we are in terms of our capacity. So those two items were her big items, as well as making sure that we continuously update the long-range financial plan with updated numbers as we get updated numbers. So we created a long-range financial plan on the February 14th budget, which was a pre-draft budget. Now we have finalized numbers. We will go back and update the numbers so that we have that 5-year long-range financial plan. And that's a continual evolution as our numbers become, as we get more accurate numbers and we have more accurate times, we're going to continuously refine that long-range financial plan for 5 years. So those were the three things that came from the commissioner's last letter.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Jallo, would you like to comment, or Dr. Paluso, anything else?
So first, I want to thank staff and all those who were involved with the budget this year. I remember very clearly what the process was like last year, and so I appreciate all those efforts around that work. Many of the concerns raised tonight are concerns that I have, but I am willing to support the budget with the understanding and the confidence in the administration that they will address things like how the budget book looks, what the long-range plan is formulating to be, how you're using your ARP dollars, how those different programs that are being funded by ARP are going to be monitored. They are also very much linked to the academic and the financial plan. So I hope that all of us will really be looking at this budget and how this budget is implemented throughout the year, because this will be a critical year in terms of the information that you will see appearing in a book and how it materializes day to day in the work and the decisions that the district administration makes on behalf of children. So I do support the budget. Am I overjoyed? No, I have some concerns. But once again, I feel confident that the district administration will take care of those in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. Any other comments with regard to the budget?
Questions or comments? Oh, this is reference to the letter.
The letter. All right, thank you. So I'll turn it back over to the Vice President.
Thank you, President Elliott. And now I will take comments in regards to the budget book before we vote. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to start to finish off on the right. So Commissioner
Patterson.
Yes, Commissioner Patterson, and then I'll go this way. I'm sorry, I meant to say Commissioner Powell, but I'll go with Commissioner Patterson first, and then, yeah, Commissioner Patterson.
Yeah, no comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Powell, last week I mentioned, and I didn't know if you wanted to give any additional comment, but this would be technically, for now, your final budget process, and I just wanted to give you space last week, and I know it was a lot happening. It was on Zoom, and I don't know if it translated well, but give you the opportunity, 26 years, 24, 25, a long time. So the floor is yours, but I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to try to repeat what I said at the last meeting. Folks can rewind the tape if they want to. But I do have one kind of parting thought on the budget. I didn't receive one call from one of my liaison schools saying they needed more money. Not one. In difficult budget years, that is not the case, right? So that's kind of our first clue that this is not a typical year, that, you know, there's money to go around. And, you know, just like in a marriage, when there's money to go around, you're not fighting over money, right? There haven't been fights, either amongst board members or between board and administration, because not only is there enough money to go around, but we can replenish our fund balance with ARP and SRSA, and with the full implementation of the contract for excellence that was approved. This part I will repeat. That was approved in 2007 with the Spitzer budget, which was 16 years ago, a budget, an implementation that was only supposed to take 4 years. That part I could say every day, every meeting, forever, and it won't get old because it's important that people understand. We're not always going to have it this good, right? So before we all break our arms patting ourselves on the back about how well we did getting through the budget season, we have to recognize that this was an exceptional year and that we were not really taxed to make hard decisions the way we have been for my entire career. I could say more on that line, but along those lines, but I want to reiterate again what I said, or take off more on what I said at the last meeting, and that is, because we see what money can do for us, I hope that going forward, all of you who are here for the next budget deliberation will, and through the next legislative cycle, will recognize that it isn't a case of doing more with less, right? Over the years, board members have adopted that very conservative policy that says, well, you can't fix everything with money. But you know what? You can't hire social workers and psychologists without money. So we see with our own eyes what we can do with money. And there are going to be hard times ahead because the state really hasn't recognized the needs of high needs districts, not truly. They didn't build a cost of living adjustment into the formula. They continue to increase charter school tuitions, even though they don't increase our own funding by the same, you know, in the same proportions. And so understanding what money can buy, I hope that this board will get behind a legislative agenda that will hold the state accountable to high needs districts. And there are more than just urban districts. You know, there are rural districts that are suffering just as badly from lack of a tax base. So hopefully we've reached a point where we can see what will unite us, what can unite us, and take actions legislatively along those lines. So thank you.
Noted, and thank you, Commissioner Powell. Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you, and thank you for those words, Commissioner Powell. Your expertise has always been appreciated by all. I'm really pleased at the balanced budget. I'm really not pleased about the format of the budget book. It doesn't really lead itself or lend itself to transparency, as the commissioner noted. I would like to call this our kicking the can down the road again budget, just in reference to the many challenging decisions that we have to finally make in the coming year and years. But, I will say that I'm relatively pleased at some of the changes that we're seeing in support of increasing the SEL supports or social emotional learning for our students. I'm really pleased at efforts that we've been making as a board and a district in terms of food service improvements. We have a ways to go, but these are some highlights. Also pleased to see the investment or continued investment in our district's crumbling infrastructure in terms of our building modernization, and I'm sure we'll be addressing a lot of this in the next few years. I would like to say personally thank you to our superintendent as well as his team of people who've been working so diligently. And although this isn't the best budget in the world, it is balanced. I'd like to particularly thank Sean Farr and his team for the hours and hours of service to our district. I'd also like to give props to my board peers for all coming together in really unprecedented fashion as we continue to put restorative action into our work together. We continue to learn and grow as we work towards actually improving student outcomes. And I can't think of a seasoned team of people who are better up to this difficult road that we face ahead, given the relative stability and cohesiveness that we've been able to achieve as a group. So thank you to everyone, and I will be voting in favor of this budget, and I know we have a tough road ahead, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. I do want to acknowledge the hard work of staff that have worked really diligently to produce the budget that we looked at this year. I know my first year as a commissioner last year, I voted no on that budget for very good reason. And so I'm excited to see the direction we're seeking to go in. And although the format was the same as last year, I'm also happy to know that it's already been acknowledged and we are going towards participatory budgeting and looking at changing that particular budget format. I do want to echo the sentiments expressed by Eamon Scanlon from the Children's Agenda in regard to social emotional supports and mental health trends and becoming more innovative on how we're approaching that for our scholars. Also, my passion for literacy aligns with that because there has been direct linkages to the lack of literacy and how that compounds students and impacts them physically and mentally. It directly correlates with their mental and physical health. And so we really want to get behind that. I keeping an eye on the ARP dollars and trying to become more sophisticated in my understanding of that spending, and really want to just charge us to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to look at our return on investment around programming and initiatives that are taking place within the district, and making sure we're not creating additional bleeds, but that we're actually having impact on the outcomes for our students. So with that, I will be supporting this budget, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. President Elliott?
Thank you. So here again, I went back to the budget team to say where the party at, because I know that this has been, difficult work. And, I mentioned last week about, the little duck, they're calm on the surface, but underneath those little feet are, just pedaling away. And so I want to thank Sean, Chief Financial Officer Sean Farr, and his team for, as I mentioned last week, it was a smooth process. And while there is work that continues to need to be done around this whole budget process, this is one of the best budget periods that I have participated in, and it went pretty smooth. And so I just really wanted to thank the finance team along with Dr. Peluso with this budget, and we'll get better and better as we go forward. This is about continuous improvement, and this is just an example of the direction that this board is moving in, and I'm just very thankful about it. I will say, just to speak on behalf of Commissioner Adams, who had a medical emergency, one of the things that he was interested in is, more support for our SSOs, and so the budget includes more support for the SSOs. And so he's very compassionate and passionate about our SSOs, particularly because of the danger that they face on a regular basis. And so just wanted to share that. And again, I want to thank the Vice President for this entire process, because I think the entire process was just an effective an efficient one. And again, we don't get all what we want. That's why there's negotiations. You're not going to get everything that you want. But this board, and if Commissioner Adams was here, I believe it's going to be a 7-0 vote, because we are confident in our leaders here, Commissioner LeBron and the superintendent, that this is the beginning of us moving in the right direction, and to assuring that what the state monitor is recommended for us in terms of its academic and financial plans, that it will appear in a way in which the state and the state monitor are going to be able to identify it. And so with that, just thank you, and that's it.
Thank you, President Elliott. And I forgot to mention by name, and just as equally important, our state monitor and our fiscal consultant, Jaime and Shelley. So thank you both. Honestly, your insights, and during this process, also even last year, Dr. Hallowell, are immeasurable and valuable, and I just wanted to, on record, thank you both. And our commissioner, Dr. Betty Rosa, as well. I know we see the letters, and sometimes we're like, panic, but honest and transparent feedback really is how we solve these issues. And so I come from the mindset, if we're not open and honest with one another, we can't really problem solve. And so, again, thank you to everyone. At this time, I will start the roll call, and I will start to my left with Commissioner Malloy. Your vote. Oh, do I get the motion? Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved. A second.
Motioned by Commissioner Simmons, second by Commissioner Malloy. Okay, any questions or comments before I take the votes? All right, I'll start with Commissioner Malloy.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons?
Aye.
I'm an aye. President Elliott?
Aye.
Commissioner Powell?
Yes.
And Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that Commissioner Adams would have also voted yes if he was here. So.
Yes, so we will say it is a symbolic yes for Commissioner Adams, who did, on record, say he supported it, but did have to go to attend to his medical needs. So thank you to Commissioner Adams, and we wish you all the best of luck tonight and a speedy recovery. There you have it, folks. I am concluding. Can I get a motion to end the budget meeting?
Motion.
Commissioner Simmons, motion by Commissioner Simmons. Seconded by Commissioner Patterson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.